We're back here on Southeastern 16 as we continue talking SEC football. Spring practice getting going for a lot of teams. One of those teams, the Oklahoma Sooners. We're going to talk Oklahoma football now. Tyler McComas joining us. He is out from the ref out in Oklahoma. Tyler, how are you today?
There's this weird thing called optimism that's been surrounding us here in the month of March. I didn't think it was possible after a bowl loss to Navy, but Chase, a lot better than the last time we spoke. I got to say, the mood's a little bit higher now.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad to hear it.
hmm
We'll get into some of the kind of the on-field stuff, but I want to talk about Jim Nagy hire. Oklahoma went out; they snagged the executive director of the Senior Bowl, and he's done a terrific job running that down in Mobile for the last little bit. So, talk to me about that hire. Kind of now him stepping in, what that's going to look like as Jim Nagy in that GM role.
Look, I thought initially this was a home run hire. I think it's more like a grand slam hire that OU got Jim Nagy. And everyone in the South, everyone in the state of Alabama knows just how gifted Jim Nagy is, not just as a football mind, but as a guy that really knows how to kind of, create relationships. It was just, I give Oklahoma a lot of credit for saying, hey, we need a general manager. And a lot of other schools are getting guys for a general manager. Let's think outside the box a little bit. Let's not just hire a former player or a guy with Oklahoma ties just to give that guy a job. Let's go out and hire the best. How about this guy that's taken the Senior Bowl from where it is? I mean, it wasn't where it was when he took over. He's just done a miraculous job with it. So, Chase, whether it's you, whether it's me, whether it's the OU fan base, whether it's the media covering the SEC, whether it's Tom Crean, a former college basketball coach, it does not matter. The reaction from this coast to coast has been, wow, Oklahoma just got a huge hire at a very critical position. Everyone here is really excited about that. And we got to speak to him last week, and his message was simply like, look, I'm here to help, man. Like, I'm here to help build a championship roster. I'm here to help take a lot of things off Brent Venables' plate. He doesn't need to be dealing with player negotiations and agents and all that stuff like that. Brent's got enough on his plate, and a huge year for him and a huge year for Oklahoma football. Not only is he a coach on the hot seat, he's a guy now that's going to be calling his own defense. So just the Jim Nagy hire alone as a general manager, I think was a grand slam hire. But the timing of it is so important as well, to where it takes a lot off the head coach's plate when he already has enough to deal with. It's a great hire, man, all the way around.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing how quickly, I guess, that we'll see an effect from Jim Nagy at Oklahoma. Last time we talked, Tyler, there was no defensive coordinator. We were speculating of who that could be, names being thrown out, and you even mentioned, could this be Brent Venables calling his own defense? That's the way he's gone. How do you feel about that? How do the folks around Oklahoma feel about that? And especially heading into spring, as he'll be taking that defensive play calling role.
I think fans feel good about it. Everyone here got their hopes up. You had a Jim Knowles from Ohio State. There was a lot of rumors there and he was interested in Oklahoma. He actually reached out first, but he left for the bigger payday. He goes to Penn State. So I think people now that we're a little bit removed from that, are, all right, let's go. There are a few defensive coordinators who are as accomplished as Brent Venables over the last, 50 years, or even the history of college football. So when you think about it that way, this is what Brent does. And we asked him last week, what was kind of the reasoning? Like, how do you feel about being the defensive coordinator? And he said, I'm calling the defense because I'm good at it. And he's right. I mean, he is good about it. Now, how this season is ultimately going to go, in my opinion, goes to the offense. Did you have a home run hire with Ben Arbuckle? Is John Mateer going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC? I think that's largely going to decide if 2025 is a much better year. But the defense is still important. And I think that the defense has got a chance to be very good once again, regardless whether Brent Venables was calling the defense or not. But now you have one of the best defensive minds in the game calling his own defense again in a year that's extremely critical for him. I've got no issue with it. The only problem people have had with it is, well, Brent's a great defensive coordinator, but that's kind of been the problem, it feels like he's been a defensive coordinator trying to be a head coach for the past few years. He needs to focus more on being a better head coach. And how likely is that if he's also calling his defense? And I think that that's a valid point. But the defense is going to be fine with Brent Venables. There's the track record that's there. I ultimately think it's going to go just fine. But yes, game management situations are going to have to be better. But let's go back to the first question that you just asked me. I think a lot of people's concerns are a little bit eased now that you have a guy like Jim Nagy, and he's going to hire guys beneath him. They're going to help Brent just be a football coach, man. Not worry about all that outside stuff, to just be a football coach.
So heading into spring, what would you say on that defensive side of the ball is the strongest position for the Sooners?
Man, I just talked about this yesterday on our show. I think linebacker has a chance. Kip Lewis, I know fans in Alabama will remember Kip Lewis, whether they're Auburn or Alabama fans. He had a pick six in both of those games. He's a really talented linebacker. Kobe McKenzie returns at backer. They don't have a ton of depth. They just actually moved Jaron Canick over to the offensive side of the ball. He's going to play some tight end. But their first four are going to be really, really good. So if it's not linebacker, man, maybe you could just say defensive tackle. You've got Jaden Jackson coming back, who's got a chance to be preseason All-SEC this year, at least second team, third team. Dominic Williams comes back, a huge transfer portal addition a year ago. David Stone, the former five-star. Grayson Halton, who was awesome. Finally, you're seeing Oklahoma, whereas for a long time under Lincoln Riley, they didn't have great backer play. They weren't good on the trenches on the defensive line. And yes, Oklahoma's had their issues, but on the defensive side of the ball, they're stacked full of talent. And there's just not very many positions right now defensively that we're really concerned are going to be a weak point. It's more the conversation of, well, what is the best position group on defense? Because I'll say linebacker, but somebody else might say safety. Somebody else might say interior defensive line. And that's a really good place to be in this conference defensively.
Yeah, 100%. It sure is. Moving over to the offensive side of the ball, obviously a lot of talk in the offseason. John Mateer coming in at quarterback. What has come of him out of spring so far? I know he had a chance to sit down with the media. What was it, last week? What have you learned about John Mateer so far at Oklahoma?
Just a natural-born leader, man. And I hesitate to even repeat what a lot of people have said around here, including Bob Stoops, by the way. But there's comparisons to Baker Mayfield, who was pretty good around here. Now, I got to check myself in saying that. There's not comparisons to this guy's going to be as good as Baker Mayfield, or he's going to win the Heisman Trophy or anything like that. It's more of like just the natural confidence and the natural swagger that he arrived with, like Baker Mayfield did when he got to Oklahoma. And there's just some odd similarities between Baker's first year that he was eligible in 2015 and this year with John Mateer. Like, Oklahoma had lost a lot of steam going into that 2015 season. Baker brought back a lot of that swagger and a lot of that confidence. That offense needed some confidence, a shot in the arm. Baker brought that in that 2015 season, and Oklahoma eventually made the 14 playoff that year. Kind of a similar situation. OU just got rid of its offensive coordinator. They got a new offensive coordinator coming in. Their offense was bad last year, maybe the worst of my lifetime. They need some confidence. They need some swagger. They need a leader, man. Someone that's going to come in and the rest of the offense, heck, the rest of the team can rally around. And by all accounts, John Mateer naturally is just that dude. It doesn't mean that he's going to throw 45 or 50 touchdowns next year or anything, but he's at least the leader and the guy to rally around the offense that you really need. And oh, by the way, via practice clips or people that are at practice, he's a guy that can really sling it and a guy that can really move and make plays with his feet. He was a leading rusher at Washington State last year. So everything that you hoped you would hear up to this point about John Mateer, and it's spring ball. I know we all only hear good things about every team, but everything that you hope to hear up to this point that's been the case with a guy that you're paying a lot of money right now to play quarterback for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other big storylines coming out of spring practice so far for the Sooners?
Man, Javonte Gibson, who's a transfer portal wide receiver from Arkansas Pine Bluff. I know when we think of college football, maybe Arkansas Pine Bluff isn't the first team that comes to mind. But he had over 1,000 yards at Pine Bluff last year. OU got him via the transfer portal, and it was, well, he wasn't exactly playing in the SEC, man. Like, that's great that he had all those numbers, but how's that going to translate to OU in the SEC? So far, it sounds like it's translated quite well. And it's not that, oh, well, Giovanni Gibson had a big practice because he just got schemed wide open by the new offensive coordinator. No, he's going up in traffic against two defenders and going up and making plays. Deion Burks has been sidelined. I think he's going to be OU's number one wide receiver. He was sidelined much of last year. He's sidelined right now, which is not what you want to hear. They're a little bit banged up at wide receiver. They're a little bit banged up at offensive line, which you don't want after the way that last year went. But outside John Mateer, man, I'd say keep your eye on Giovanni Gibson for potentially being a big-time wide receiver for this team.
All right. And as far as spring game and stuff goes for Oklahoma, they still doing one, keep it on like normal as far as spring game goes?
No spring game. I thought they would this year and then not do it probably ever again. But they recently announced that they're going to do something called the Crimson Combine. I don't know if that's like hot dog eating contest or slam dunk contest like Ole Miss has been doing. They're going to have some player drills. They're going to have Jim Nagy, Ben Arbuckle there for interview opportunities. Nobody around here was very happy about that. Oklahoma, for those that don't know, is very much a fan base that they like the way that college football has been for a long time. Don't love a whole lot of rapid changes with the sports. And this is the spring game a big deal at the end of the day? No, but it just feels like it's more of a move away from the fans and more of a way to the traditional college football format. So that was met with a lot of frustration, and administration heard that for sure. But Brent cited injuries kind of as the reason why they don't want to do it, and they're going to be one of the many that don't have a spring game this year.
Yeah, it is. It's looking much different. That is for sure. Tyler McComas, you can hear him on the ref out in Oklahoma. Tyler, appreciate you coming on, talking some Oklahoma football with us, and we'll catch up with you definitely as we get into the summer and before the season. But appreciate your time today.
You bet, man. Anytime.
We are talking SEC football year-round here on Southeastern 16. Stay tuned to the channel. Subscribe, like this video, and we'll be back with more here on Southeastern 16.